few days ago, I had this really bad toothache and I made an appointment with the dentist. And during the period while I had the toothache and until I went to the dentist, I was only thinking about that. It was the only problem in my head. And I couldn't think and focus on anything else. And this got me thinking about problems in general, how we are constantly trying to seek problems or problems are seeking us somehow, and we're always trying to solve them and fixating on a certain thing one way or another. So I just made a little bit of research about problems in general, and at least based on evolutionary psychology, it seems to be that problem solving is just a trait that we developed in order to survive back then. Our ancestors had to think about survival every second, and so we needed to think in the moment, how do we solve this problem right now? This tiger is chasing me, what do I do in the moment? And probably with time, natural selection just favored these individuals who are more adept at problem solving. And so even in the modern age, even in the modern day right now, we're really fixated on problems, and there is always something that we are chasing and something that we need to repair and fix in our lives.
So, just to clarify, I think we do have a lot of problems in life, either ways, whether they're self-created or not. But just like you said, I feel like since our ancestors and our great, 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 great grandparents had to deal with survival every day, whether it's they're getting chased by an animal or they're searching for shelter, trying to find food, trying to find water and survive. They're all problems that they had in the past and they had to solve them in order to persist. Because as a human beings, our first instinct, I guess, from the beginning of time, I'm not really sure about this, is to survive and reproduce, just like any other animal on the planet. And because our ancestors had to deal with this on a daily basis for, I don't know, I'm really not into dates and times that much. But I'm gonna make the assumption of at least hundreds of years. I think that got instilled in our evolutionary psychological development, if you want to call it that way, that it is till nowadays we still kind of try to solve problems, or we evolve to be problem solvers, and we try to solve problems as sort of a survival mechanism. Of course, there's a lot of other factors here at hand that we can get into as well in a little bit, but it is definitely in our DNA that we're problem solvers, and if you don't have problems, then you technically end up creating your own problems.
Exactly, and
because it's like you're satisfying that evolutionary
like
psychological
need
need.
of you.
Exactly.
It's
really
basic primitive feature that we have, like emotions, for example. And you mentioned briefly before that there are real problems in the world and there are self-created problems. And what do you think the difference is? Like, how do you define a problem as something that is self-created or a problem that actually exists in the objective world, I guess, or in our objective reality, at least?
That's I've thought about this question for a long time, to be honest. The only answer that I found within myself was don't fuck up with the working system.
What do you mean?
So, self-created problems are usually problems or issues that we find in a working system. So, I'll bring an example from my life. All right. For many, many years, as we live in Germany, we all know that Germany is a huge bureaucrat country system. And we do have a lot of papers and a lot of, documents, and they're all in, paper, type, whatever you want to call it. And for the past 5 years, I've had a system that's not really organized, not really that good of a system for my papers, but the system was working. And I was familiar with the system that I've had, I just had the important documents in a specific area and non-important documents that I needed to keep on me for a specific period of time, I had them in a box where there was all the other, the unimportant documents that were just stacked in it. And the important ones were in a folder, whatever you want to call it. And that was a system that was working just fine. But then I ended up creating a problem for myself and like, no, that's not a system that's working. I need a better system.
Yeah, like
You know?
nitpicking or maybe perfectionism in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong. I don't like for myself, I don't find a problem with me wanting to be more organized and having my papers, not just in a box, but like, in different folders, and there's a little bit more of a system in there. But the system was working for years. Like I've said, like I've used the system for a minimum of 5 years. Suddenly I had the need to no, there's a problem with the system that we've got right now and we have to adjust it. So I ended up literally just taking documents from the past 2 years. And in Germany, you get a lot of documents. Like I have a box this huge that's packed with documents. And I spent about 5 hours, all right, just clearing, throwing the stuff that I don't need it anymore, and taking the documents and putting them in 4 different folders. So it's a long story, but I ended up creating a problem. I touched a working system and I fucked up with the working system in order to improve it. Sure, no denying that. But I ended up creating a problem out of a situation that was,
it's
fully working.
Something that's very small also. Like I feel like real problems require urgency. Like you need to solve these problems. Like you have a health issue, or you need to fix a relationship, or you need like things that are related to your core needs in general.
It's if you want to take a deeper dive in it, then we can always, which is a question that we haven't asked for a while, but like, how would you define what is a problem?
I feel like in my perspective, real problems are related to your survival. Like not necessarily only survival, but like your basic needs.
But then that's just,
and then when you have your basic needs, you will search for new things. Some of them could be real problems.
But then now we can argue from the other perspective that this is just your human nature. So this is not really a problem. So what is a problem?
If you want to look at it objectively, there is no like the word problem is only human related.
If we want to define the word problem, like if we were trying to forcefully, objectively define the word problem here, it would be because every problem has a solution. So if a problem doesn't have, you go back to that old system, where you've got problem, you have a problem, yes.
And every solution
is there a solution, then you don't have a problem. You have a problem, yes. Is there a solution? No, then you don't have a problem.
We are blind to the solutions. Every problem has a solution. Sure. But there are a lot of things.
Not really.
I'll give you an example. Like,
you can't say that every problem got a solution.
Every problem got a solution that maybe you don't have in the moment or you don't see.
Okay, now we're talking in a more abstract way that there could be a solution that we're either not aware of or it's still not available at this time.
To it in a sense.
But it depends on how we define problems. That you would understanding, okay, what is a problem and what is not. And then if you're gonna go back to the example from earlier, then we take a subgenre from problems, which is self-created problems, of course. And again, it's really hard to define and identify which is which. But like for me, on a simple way, I went, like I've said before, don't fuck up with the working system. If the system is working, then you don't have a problem. Unless you want to improve it, then you're working on improving the system, but you're not creating a problem out of it.
Like I think
again, I'm just connecting some dots in my mind here right now, a little bit out loud. That would also depend on what a problem is for you.
Yeah, sure.
But
I do think that there are, sure, problems are subjective. What might be urgent for you could not be urgent for someone else.
Yeah.
But I'm talking subjectively. It's really important to know the difference between the problems that you're just creating in your head because of your anxiety and your stress and all of the things, and the problems that do like at least objectively in your life exist. Like you need to fix a relationship. You need to work on, being more financially free. Like things that actually improve your life in the future. Because if you don't know the difference, that you might be consumed by this self-created concept of problems, and that could make you go on a rabbit hole and trying to fix things that don't really matter in your life instead of working on the real things.
Look at it like this. There's the story, I guess it's of the Greece fisherman. I'm not really sure. Regardless, it's a fisherman of some country. I don't know if it's a real story or not, but doesn't matter. Anyways, The story goes like there's this fisherman in his country, and he fishes, obviously, fisherman. An American flies to that specific country and ends up meeting with that guy, and he sees that he got a lot of talent. He knows how to fish well. He knows how to take care of his, you know, surroundings and make sure that everything is done well. And then the American offers the fisherman an opportunity, and he tells him, I can give you a job as a fisherman in America and start a company for you. I would help you build that company so you can become a millionaire, and then you can come back to your country and have an easy life where you only have to worry. You don't have any worries technically. You have the money, you have the company running in America, you're back in your country, you can chill in a farm and do whatever you want.
Solving his problems.
Yeah. The fisherman goes like, that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Technically, right now, I'm just fishing. I can sell a little bit. I have food. I have my farm, and I'm having the life that I want. I could go to America and start the company. Now, I'm just going to my own interpretation here. The fisherman could technically go to America, start the company, and be financially free, and then go back to his original plan, which was, the survival life, which is like, I've got food, I've got shelter, I've got something to drink. So the American was just creating a problem for the fisherman. Or if the fisherman has said yes to that, then he was just creating a self problem, which is like, I need to be financially free.
Yeah, which is
because being financially free, like even I'm someone who always says I want to be financially free, But I always ask myself the question, why? Or like, what happens after I'm financially free? And then the answer is always like, I will have less worries. But then less worries and an easier life. But then right now I'm thinking about it like, I kind of already have that. I kind of don't have that many worries. I do have a lot of worries, but it's still something within a box. And my life after being financially free is not going to be much different than now, except that I will have more money.
Okay, I have a perspective on that. The way I see it is that self-created problems are related to things that you don't necessarily value or actually care about because of society or because of things that people tell you or might shame you for, might guilt you for, and then you create this problem that doesn't really exist. While real problems, at least the subjective real problems, are related to things that you actually care about and value, things that actually will make your life better. And these are things you like you should be solving.
If they're making your life better, then are they a problem? What you're saying on the first glance.
No. If you solve them, your life becomes better. That's what I'm trying to say. Like focusing on your health, working out, things that could make your life, things that you might value.
For me, at least, all the things that you're mentioning so far as examples, I don't see them as problems in the first place.
I do see them as problems.
So like your health, if you're taking good care of your health and you're trying to improve your health, then that's not really a problem. You're just trying to be in a healthier position in your life.
I do think it's a problem if you're not working on these things that are.
But that's not a problem then.
Important or good for you.
It's something that you just need to improve on.
But not working on this is causing kind of a problem in your life.
It's not causing a problem yet. It could potentially cause a problem in the future.
Yeah, sure.
But then again, we can argue from a philosophical point of view that what future? There is no tomorrow. I
don't want to look at it from that perspective because I want to focus on just the idea that whether a problem actually exists or not, and I agree that objectively, philosophically, they don't exist. But we as humans, we can't live without these problems. Like you just can't go without it. Yeah. So I'm trying to.
But the difference is you could also create yourself a problem without the pressure of society. And for example, like
it's not the only way.
For example, like me and my documents, I created myself a problem that's based on my own values because I'm quite an organized guy. I like to have my stuff organized. I like to have my own systems of everything. So I created that problem for myself. And within the limits of my own values, of how I like myself to be, of how I like my surrounding to be. But before I created that, it wasn't a problem. I just made a problem out of it.
This is
based on exactly, but it's still based on my own values. It's still based on my own personality that I wanted to fix it. And then after I fixed it, I wouldn't say my life got better, I would say I'm just gonna have a little bit of a minimum tiny amount of easier time with my documents or my paperwork.
But you're gonna find something else to create a new problem.
Exactly.
That's the thing. It's a
Exactly.
never-ending cycle.
Exactly. So I think instead of trying to understand what's the difference between a problem and what a self-created problem is, I think it's better if you try to understand why are you creating these problems and why are you looking at them in the first place.
Sure. That's also very important.
Because whether you can define, so even if you manage to take it zoom out, as we usually say, and kind of look at things from a different perspective, trying to figure out whether it's a problem or not, you still need to understand why you're making a problem out of it. Because
that's where you need to be self-aware. Like you need to notice. You need to notice what are you thinking about in the moment when you have this problem. I feel like even inside the real problem, there could be a self-created problem. An example is I started the episode by talking about I had a toothache. So in that moment when I had toothache, that was a real problem. I had a toothache that I needed to solve. The self-created problem is that I was thinking, oh, what if I can't work for a while? What if I start to catastrophize and doing, I created these small problems that don't really exist, that are generated from this anxiety and overthinking, while the real problem was very simple. You had a toothache, you go to the doctor, you fix it, it's over. But I made a whole narrative of other things that could potentially happen and this and that. These are not real problems, these are self-created problems. So that's why I like to maybe relate it to urgency, like maybe real. I know I'm using the word real could be not the right word to use, but I'm talking about your subjective experience. A real problem is related to urgency, something you really need to work on to improve.
If you do have a problem, then there is some sense of urgency of trying to finish it, to solve it, I mean. And if there is no urgency,
it's and like if there is no urgency to solve it, like you with the documents, there
exactly.
was no urgency.
Exactly.
I feel like there is a difference here. There is some kind of a difference.
Yeah.
I know it's subjective. For some people, maybe they had a situation where they had to order their documents. There was some kind of urgency in. That's why it's subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's subjective.
Exactly.
So what is urgent for you right now in your life? That's how you could maybe identify which are the real problems and which ones are just generated by your psyche, like that are not.
I feel that, like, also understanding, like, just trying to deconstruct why you're having problems in your life, not deconstructing the problem, but why you're having the problems, trying to have a little bit of understanding to the reasons behind not just a problem, but why you're having suddenly all of these problems in your life, is going to help you to not just separate between them, or going to be able to help you to separate between which is a self-created problem, which is a real problem for me, and going to help you to also prioritize them in a specific way. Because when you're self-creating problems, and you're too in your head about the problem that you're self-creating, it's going to be an urgent problem for you. So, for example, the documents for me, like, I'm going to go back to this example.
In the moment, it does feel urgent.
In the moment, when I've realized, okay, this is a system that I need to improve, and I've got a problem with my documents. Like, for 2 days, it was going on in my head, and my head was like, we gotta do the documents, we gotta work on the papers, And then I finally got to it, because in my head it seemed so urgent, and then midway through it, after I've done like half the, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I've used the system for years. And now suddenly I'm just deciding to change everything.
I feel like the brain doesn't know the difference between a real problem or a self-created.
Exactly, but that's why I'm talking about, like, understanding. Because when I started realizing, like, what am I doing here in the first place? Why am I working on them? I started asking myself the questions of, why did I self-create? Why did I create this problem in the first place? And it was just like one of many problems that I've self-created, of course. And then that started putting things into perspective. That, I had other self-created problem that I wanted to finish this week. And then when I started asking myself the reasons of why am I making these self-created problems, I managed to kind of hit the brakes on all these self-created problems that I would want to take care of this week. And that managed to give me some distance between, how my my survival instinct, if that's what we want to call it, or the reason why I was creating these problems, and myself, there was a little bit of distance that I was able to say, like, okay, this is not actually a problem, and I'm stressing over this for the past, I don't know, week or something. It's just getting problematic in my head. And like I said, so what I'm trying to get to here is, again, which I've mentioned already multiple times this episode, or so far at least, is that the reason, once you have a little bit of understanding, you're able to put the distance. It's like once you understand why you're feeling a certain way, you will be able to put a distance between you and the emotion.
Understanding why. That's
Exactly.
a very important thing. And another point I want to mention with the whole thing of understanding why you make these problems, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like sometimes we have resistance to correct our real, like to work on our real problems because they are daunting or maybe you are afraid of them. So we create these small self-created things because they're easier to work on, to procrastinate on the real problems. This is what I do sometimes, at least.
In return, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the reasons could be to why we self-create problems?
I feel like it's a coping mechanism. It's many things, but I feel like a part of it is a coping mechanism from the real problems. I tell you this often when I have something I really need to work on, but then I decided to clean my room or to clean the house because for me, this process, this problem, self-created problem, is easier than working on the real thing that is important for me. So I just try to do something else that's maybe a little bit productive. So it's like, okay, I'm solving something, but in that moment, it doesn't matter. This is not what I wanted to do. This is what I just started doing for some reason, you know? So I feel like it's not necessarily coping mechanism, but just avoidance, just resistance to do the important thing.
The way that I define it, so one of the reasons is this, at least what I came up with, and I've defined it as like kind of fear of change.
Yeah.
You know that you've got to apply some changes, or you've got to put in the work on something so you can get to a certain area in your life and you can change something in your life. Because technically that's why we do hard challenges, And because you're afraid of doing that, or because you don't want to start putting too much energy into that, you start creating self-creating problems.
You give yourself some dopamine if you
not only this, but like, oh, I will get to that I will get to my project and my business later. For now, I'm just gonna focus on getting everything in order or the way that I want it.
Because it's easy to do. You know how to do it. It's very easy process.
It is.
It is. While the real challenge could be something that you're not so sure of. You need to think about it.
Look at it like this as well. When we are self-creating, which is other reasons, when we are self-creating problems, we usually, so when you have a self-created problem and you solve it, it gives you a real, not just dopamine, but there's a really psychological pleasure in that.
Your brain doesn't tell the difference.
There's psychological pleasure. Like when I finished my documents,
do you feel good?
I was like on high. I'm like, damn,
exactly.
That looks, and then I was like,
that's what you realize.
Like, So you've got the fear of change. You've got, that your brain kind of requesting this psychological pleasure that is easy to obtain. And I guess also one of the main factors as well that a lot of people fall into is an emotional low. So you're in an emotional low, whether it's because, you haven't had any emotional situations in your life the past few days, past few weeks, whatever, and you're looking for some sort of either emotional support from yourself or emotional support from other people, some validation. They end up creating itself problems that you can talk about to other people, so people can give you the look of like, you've done well, which I've done with you. When I finished with the documents, I came to your room and I was like, wow, dude, I was working on my documents for the past few hours, and even then, it made like, why am I even telling you? Like, there's nothing wrong with sharing small victories, but it's a self-created problem that you don't know anything about, and then suddenly there's a guy in your room telling you, oh, I just finished all my documents, I organize it. Like, why? Because again,
it's like throwing garbage and then taking it out or feeling, oh yeah, I'm just such a good guy.
Exactly.
I'm cleaning the streets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
I want to take another turn here back to the thing that I feel like I've been talking about it so much lately in almost every episode, which is the ego. It's, again, the emotions, an emotional low, when you have a problem that you've solved or a problem that you're solving with a group. you're boosting your
Of
ego.
course. Yeah.
And so look at it like this. First of all, self-creating problems make it easier for you to avoid hard challenges. It boosts your ego. It boosts your self-confidence and gives you psychological pleasure.
Yeah.
Plus, it can afford an emotional support or empathy from somebody else,
Yeah.
or from you toward yourself. So
it's something to occupy yourself with, in a sense. Like,
it's not just this,
maybe
but
even
it's like
boredom, you know.
it's kind of like, in a harsh way, now that I'm saying all of these stuff, it's kind of like self-pity.
Sure.
You
I
know,
can see that. I can see
it's
that.
kind of like you're self-pitying yourself.
Oh, like I have these.
Yeah,
things,
exactly.
yeah.
I've got all of these problems that I have to work on. Oh, I will get to these stuff later, you know, and you start.
It's a never-ending cycle. It's really,
It is.
It's really dangerous. I don't know. I feel like I'm a firm believer that you can't completely get rid of this bias towards problem. That you will always be seeking problems to solve. But what you can do is be more self-aware and try to figure out what is a real problem and what is something that you're just creating in the moment that doesn't really matter in the big picture, in the future that you want, I guess. So this is the question that you need to ask yourself. Like, does this actually matter to me or not? Because you're gonna find problems to solve anyway. So what do you choose to focus on?
I want to take a different stand here and actually say that it's alright to self-create problems, but within the limit. So,
Kinda.
like, I'm gonna go back to me and my freaking documents that I've mentioned millions of times this episode already.
Everybody knows about the documents.
I was having a bit of a psychological and emotional low since for a week right now, maybe 10 days, something like this. Why? Because I've put in so much work towards something and things were starting to stabilize. And then, things start becoming boring and there's no more dopamine hits that, I'm accomplishing something in my life. So I start kind of crashing down. And that's what started happening to me. And then in my head, for the past 4, maybe 5 days, I started creating a lot of problems, self-creating a lot of problems to solve them. And sure, I've spent 2 days solving most of these problems. 2 days gone, sure, we can argue that this is a bad thing. But at the same time, after these 2 days, I had my ego boost. I had my, psychological pleasure. I had my all of the things that were missing in the past 10 days to 2 weeks time span. And right now I know that, okay, we're at a point where we can sort of distance ourselves between ourselves and the problems that we're creating, and we can start going back to the plan that we started in the first place. So my stand on this, it's alright if you stop creating problems, and it's alright if you're fixing them. It can boost you in a good way and set you up in a good direction. The problem is, which you've already mentioned, it can be a never-ending loop.
So
a huge cycle.
Just like everything else in moderation.
Exactly. So it's okay to do that, but you need to find a way to distance yourself from it. And I'll take myself again as an example here. I could have probably stopped with the problem solving after the first day of solving my self-created problems, and I would have been good then. But it took me, like I've said, 2 days to kind of come to realization that, hey, you're the one who's creating all of these problems for yourself, and you kind of are feeling good about yourself again, so you can go back to, the original plan of what you were trying to accomplish in the first place. Yeah.
It's like a good thing to. I feel like sometimes it's okay to escape from reality, or at least from the things that are really daunting on you. Like, take a break. Some people, I think, are more adept at problem solving. They're actually more inclined to problem solve. These are the people who maybe find some hobbies where they could all about constantly problem solving, and that's a way to kind of escape from the real thing for a while. That's like a small vacation, I guess. But you
Small
need
victories.
small exactly, small victories, that you're still feeling better about yourself, that you're doing something important, at least in your mind, but you're aware of it. Then you know when to stop and when to actually go back to this real thing that you need to solve right now and work on it. So that's why I think self-awareness is really crucial here, that
Definitely.
to differentiate between them first, so that you are more conscious of what you are doing in the moment, to actually realize, is this a real problem or just something is just giving me some pleasure trying to solve this puzzle or whatever I'm trying to do. You know, it's like, think about it, solving puzzles and all of these things. It's the same thing. You're just
Exactly.
solving a
Yeah.
problem. It's just more entertaining. You
Mhm.
know, it's not a real problem, but it gives you pleasure. It makes you feel better about yourself, that you're smart, that you managed to do this, you calculated this. You know. So yeah, I think that's it for this episode. Do you have anything else?
I've got nothing else to add.
All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have anything to say about this topic, let us know in the comments, and we'll see.
In the next one.